"You're fired, that watch is stolen property." The words hit me like a cold wave, even before I could fully stand up. "Take off that expensive thing, old woman, you're going to jail." My heart stopped. But then a voice, strong and clear, cut through the noise, a voice I knew better than my own breath. "That's not stolen, that's my mother. I bought her that watch." It all started about 30 years ago, back when I was a young woman, full of dreams and hope. My name is Elsie, and my world revolved around my beautiful daughter, Sarah. She was just 2 years old when her father left us. He just walked out one day, said he couldn't handle the pressure of being a husband and a dad. I was heartbroken, truly shattered, but I knew I had to be strong for Sarah. She deserved everything good in life, and I swore right then and there that I would move mountains to give it to her. We had very little money, just enough to get by. I lived in a small apartment, 2 rooms, nothing fancy, but it was clean and it was ours. Every morning I would wake up before the sun, make sure Sarah was still sleeping soundly, and then I'd head out to my first job. I was a janitor cleaning offices in the early hours. Then I'd rush back home, get Sarah ready for daycare, and head to my second janitor job, cleaning a school. Sometimes I even had a third job, cleaning a local diner in the evenings. It was exhausting, truly, but every time I looked at Sarah, her bright eyes and happy smile, I found the strength to keep going. She was my everything, my reason for breathing. I never complained, not once. I just kept pushing. I was a hardworking woman, always on time, always doing my best. I believed that if I worked hard enough, God would provide, and Sarah would have a better future than I did. My biggest dream was for Sarah to go to college. I wanted her to have opportunities I never had. So every single dollar I could spare, after paying for rent and food, went into a special savings account for her education. I wore the same clothes until they had holes, I rarely ate out, and I never bought anything for myself. But for Sarah, I made sure she had decent clothes, good books, and everything she needed for school. She was a brilliant girl, smart and kind. She understood our struggles, even from a young age. She would often leave me little drawings on the fridge saying, "I love you, Mommy," or "You are the best." Those little notes were my fuel, my joy. We had a strong bond, Sarah and I. She was not just my daughter. She was my best friend, my confidant. We were a team, taking on the world together, just the two of us. The company where I worked, my main janitor job, the office building, was called Horizon Corp. I had been there for a long, long time, over 25 years. I saw the company grow from a small startup to a big, important corporation. I knew every corner of that building, every office, every bathroom. I knew some of the old staff, the ones who were there when I started, and they respected me. They knew I was a good, honest worker. But things started to change about 5 years ago when a new manager joined, a young man named Mr. Harrison. He was in his early 30s, always dressed in expensive suits, and he had a permanent sneer on his face when he talked to the cleaning staff. He seemed to think that because we cleaned the toilets, we were somehow less human than him. He was arrogant, truly ungrateful and cruel. He would strut around the office like he owned the place, always barking orders, always finding fault. He especially seemed to dislike me, an older woman who had been there longer than him. He would often make comments about my age, about how slow I was, even though I was always efficient and fast. He looked down on me and it hurt. It really did. But I always kept my head down, I just kept working. I needed that job. For Sarah, always for Sarah. The abuse from Mr. Harrison started subtly, then it just kept building. He began by making small, demeaning comments. "Elsie, are you sure you swept that corner? It looks like a dust bunny convention." Or, "Elsie, at your age, maybe it's time to consider a less strenuous job." He would say these things in front of other staff, making me feel small, making me feel ashamed. My face would burn, but I would just nod and say, "Yes, Mr. Harrison, I'll recheck it immediately." I couldn't afford to lose my temper, I couldn't afford to lose my job. He knew that. He saw my fear, and he seemed to enjoy it. One time, I brought my lunch, a simple sandwich and an apple, and left it in the staff fridge. When I went to get it during my break, it was gone. I asked around, but no one knew what happened. Later, I saw Mr. Harrison laughing with some other managers, and on his desk I saw my apple core. He had thrown away my sandwich and eaten my apple. When I looked at him, he just smirked. "Oh, did you lose your lunch, Elsie? Maybe you're getting forgetful in your old age." My stomach rumbled and my heart ached. It wasn't just the food, it was the disrespect, the absolute cruelty of it. but I just walked away, found a quiet corner, and cried silently. He all started assigning me impossible tasks. He would make me clean the entire 5th floor, which was huge, by myself in just 2 hours, knowing it was a 4-hour job for 2 people. I would have to rush, skipping my breaks, working extra time off the clock just to finish it. He'd often come by just as I was finishing, inspecting my work with a magnifying glass, always finding some tiny speck of dust to point out. "Elsie, this corner isn't gleaming, do it again." He would make me work an extra 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, just to redo a small section, purely to punish me. I never got paid for that extra time. My back ached, my feet throbbed, but I endured it. Every night, I would call Sarah, who was now away at college, and she would ask how my day was. I would always tell her it was fine, never wanting to worry her. I wanted her to focus on her studies, not on my struggles. He forgot my birthday once, which wasn't a big deal as I didn't expect anyone to remember. But then, he made a big show of getting cakes and cards for other younger employees. He even publicly announced their birthdays during a morning meeting, praising them. I heard him say, "Happy birthday, Jessica. You're such a valuable member of our team." And I just cleaned the crumbs from the cake they left behind. It was a small thing, but it cut deep. It made me feel invisible, worthless. There was one really terrible incident a couple of years before the big climax. Mr. Harrison tried to get me fired. He accused me of stealing $50 from a desk in one of the executive offices. He called me into his office, his face red with fake anger. "Elsie, Ms. Jenkins reported $50 missing from her desk. You were the only one cleaning that office yesterday evening. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" My hands started shaking. "No, Mr. Harrison, I would never steal. I never touch anything that doesn't belong to me," he scoffed. "Oh, really? An old cleaning lady suddenly needs extra cash, perhaps for her rent, or maybe for her poor daughter's tuition." That last part about Sarah made my blood boil, but I kept my voice steady. "I have worked here for 25 years. I have an unblemished record. I have never taken a single penny that wasn't mine." He just leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile on his face. "Well, Ms. Jenkins is very upset. I think we might have to let you go." I felt my world crumbling. Losing this job, especially on such a false accusation, would be devastating. I knew my rights, though. I remembered reading the employee handbook cover to cover many times. I knew there were cameras in the hallway, outside Ms. Jenkins' office. "Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "can we please check the security camera footage from the hallway? It will show I never went into Ms. Jenkins' office after she left." He hesitated, his smile faltering a little. He clearly hadn't thought about that. He probably just assumed I wouldn't know about the cameras or wouldn't dare to ask. After some huffing and puffing, he finally agreed. We went to security and they pulled up the footage, and there it was, clear as day. I had cleaned the offices on either side of Ms. Jenkins' office, but I had gone straight past hers without entering. Ms. Jenkins herself had forgotten to lock her office door and left her money exposed. She had been the last one to leave the office, and the footage showed her leaving the office at 5:00 p.m. and me passing by at 5:30 p.m. I was cleared. Mr. Harrison was furious, his face turning purple, but he couldn't do anything. He just mumbled something about a misunderstanding and let me go. I knew from that day on he hated me even more. He would always be looking for a reason to get rid of me. He was a truly evil man, full of malice. Through all this, Sarah was my beacon. She studied so hard, graduated top of her class from college, and then went on to business school. I continued to work, pouring every ounce of my strength into keeping my job and sending her money. She got a scholarship for business school, which helped a lot, but I still sent her what I could for living expenses, making sure she had good food and a comfortable place to live. I was so proud of her, my brilliant daughter. After business school, she landed an amazing job in another city, working for a huge technology company. She moved away, and I missed her terribly, but I was so happy for her success. She was living the dream I had always wanted for her. Even though she was far away, Sarah never forgot me. She called me every day, sometimes twice. She would send me little gifts, often things I would never buy for myself, like a warm scarf in winter or a comfortable pair of shoes. She started making good money, and she insisted on sending me some every month, just a little extra to make my life easier. I would tell her, "No, sweetie, you keep it, save it for yourself." But she would say, "Mom, you worked your whole life for me. Let me take care of you now." She was so insistent, and I finally accepted, feeling a mix of pride and a little bit of guilt. Then, about 6 months before the incident, something really special happened. It was my 60th birthday. Sarah flew home to surprise me. She took me out to my favorite restaurant, a small place that served amazing fried chicken. After dinner, she handed me a small, beautifully wrapped box. "Happy birthday, Mom," she said, her eyes shining. I opened it carefully, and inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was the most beautiful watch I had ever seen. It was made of gold with a classic, elegant face. It looked incredibly expensive. My breath caught in my throat. "Sarah, what is this? It's too much, darling. I can't possibly wear this," I said, my voice trembling. She smiled, a beautiful, confident smile. "Yes, you can, Mom. You deserve it. You worked harder than anyone I know. You sacrificed everything for me. This is just a small token of my love and appreciation. I want you to wear it every day. Wear it proudly, Mom. You earned it." I started crying right there in the restaurant. It was such a beautiful gesture, such a heartfelt gift. I hugged her tightly. "Thank you, my angel. Thank you so much." I wore the watch every day after that. It felt heavy on my wrist, a constant reminder of Sarah's love and her incredible success. It also felt a little out of place sometimes, especially when I was scrubbing floors. I would sometimes take it off and put it in my locker, worried I might damage it. But Sarah had told me to wear it proudly, and so I did. I cherished that watch more than anything. It wasn't just gold and diamonds. It was a symbol of my daughter's love, a testament to all the hard work and sacrifices I had made. It was a physical representation of my biggest dream coming true. The day everything happened started like any other workday. It was a Tuesday. I woke up at 4:30 a.m., had my usual cup of instant coffee, and left for Horizon Corp. I was wearing my best uniform, clean and pressed, and of course, Sarah's beautiful watch was on my wrist. I started my rounds, emptying trash cans, dusting desks, mopping floors. I worked my way up to the executive floor, the top floor, where the most important people had their offices. The executive bathrooms were always the cleanest, but I still had to make sure they were spotless. They were made of marble with gleaming chrome fixtures. It was 10:00 a.m., and most of the executives were already in their offices behind closed doors. The floor was quiet. I entered the men's executive bathroom first. I put my cleaning cart outside as usual. I started cleaning the sinks, scrubbing the marble counters. The watch felt a little awkward on my wrist as I moved my hands vigorously. I didn't want to get it wet, and I certainly didn't want to scratch it. So I carefully took it off and placed it on the small, pristine marble shelf above the sink, right next to the soap dispenser. It was a safe spot, I thought. I continued cleaning, humming a little tune to myself. I wiped down the mirrors, cleaned the toilets, mopped the floor until it gleamed. It took me about 15 minutes. When I was done, I gathered my supplies, pushed my cart out, and went to the women's executive bathroom next. I completely forgot about the watch. It just slipped my mind. It wasn't until I was halfway through cleaning the women's bathroom that I felt the sudden emptiness on my wrist. My heart leaped into my throat. The watch, Sarah's watch, panic flooded me. I dropped my cleaning rag and ran back to the men's bathroom. I pushed open the door, my eyes immediately scanning the marble shelf. It was gone. My stomach dropped. I looked under the sink on the floor behind the soap dispenser. Nothing. The beautiful gold watch was gone. My hands started to tremble. How could I be so careless? What would Sarah say? No, she wouldn't be angry. She would be worried about me, upset that I lost something so precious. Tears started to well up in my eyes. I searched for another 5 minutes, frantically, desperately, but it was nowhere. It was truly gone. Just as I was about to give up, defeated, Mr. Harrison walked in. He came in through the main entrance of the executive floor, heading towards the men's bathroom. He looked particularly smug today, carrying a stack of files. He saw me standing there, my face pale and worried, my cleaning cart abandoned outside. His eyes narrowed. "Elsie, what are you doing loitering in the executive bathroom? Are you finished with your rounds? You're taking too long." I tried to explain, my voice shaky. "Mr. Harrison, I lost something, my watch. I think I left it here." He raised an eyebrow, a cruel smirk spreading across his face. "Your watch? What kind of watch would you, a janitor, be worried about losing? A cheap plastic thing, I assume." "No, sir, it's a gift, a very special gift." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Just then his eyes scanned the counter where I had left the watch. And there it was. not where I had left it, but lying flat on the counter near the sink. He must have picked it up or moved it, or maybe someone else had found it and placed it there. My heart jumped with relief, but then sank again as I saw the look on his face. He saw the watch, a gold watch sparkling under the lights. His eyes widened not with surprise but with something darker. Greed, malice. He picked it up slowly, turning it over in his hand, admiring its expensive shine. "Well, well, well," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What do we have here?" "A very fancy watch indeed. This looks like a Rolex, or something similar. An old janitor like you, Elsie, wearing a watch like this. Don't tell me you found this, because if you did, you should have turned it in. Company policy." "No, Mr. Harrison, it's mine. My daughter, Sarah, gave it to me for my birthday 6 months ago. It's a gift," I pleaded, my voice rising in desperation. He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Your daughter, Sarah, the one who works as a secretary somewhere. Or is she still in school? Don't lie to me, Elsie. A watch like this costs thousands of dollars. Do you really expect me to believe your daughter, a mere employee, could afford something like this?" "She's not a secretary. She works for a big tech company. She bought it for me," I insisted, tears starting to stream down my face. My words sounded weak, even to my own ears. He clearly didn't believe me. He shook his head slowly, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "No, Elsie, I always knew you were a slippery one. Always too quiet, too humble. I bet you've been stealing small things for years and now you got greedy. This watch, it must belong to one of the executives. Someone probably left it here and you just happened to find it. Or worse, you took it from their desk earlier." "No, I didn't. I would never." My voice was a desperate cry. "Oh yes, you did," he said, holding up the watch. "This is evidence, Elsie, clear evidence. I'm calling security. You're going to be arrested for theft. After 25 years, you finally show your true colors, you old thief." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Security? Yes, Mr. Harrison here on the executive floor. I have a situation. One of our cleaning staff, Elsie, has been caught with what appears to be stolen property, a very expensive watch. Yes, please send someone up immediately. And inform the police. We need to press charges." My whole body went cold. Police, jail. I had never even gotten a parking ticket in my life. The thought of being accused of theft, of going to jail, was utterly terrifying. My reputation, everything I had worked for, my daughter's pride in me, it would all be ruined. I started to shake uncontrollably. "Please, Mr. Harrison, don't do this. I can prove it's mine. Sarah will tell you, just call her." He just sneered. "I don't have time for your pathetic excuses, Elsie. It's a clear case. And frankly, I'm glad. I've been looking for a reason to get rid of you for years. You're old, you're slow, and you're a drain on company resources. Now I have a legitimate reason to terminate your employment and make sure you never work again." He savored those words, his eyes alight with cruel satisfaction. Just at that moment, as Mr. Harrison was standing there, watch in hand, looking at me with pure contempt, the double doors of the executive suite, right across the hallway, opened. A woman stepped out, impeccably dressed, radiating confidence and power. She was holding a tablet and talking on her phone, her voice clear and authoritative. She had beautiful, strong features, and her hair was styled in a sleek, modern way. She looked directly at Mr. Harrison and me. Her eyes, suddenly sharp, landed on my face, then on Mr. Harrison, and then on the watch in his hand. It was Sarah, my daughter. She ended her call abruptly, her expression changing from businesslike to one of complete shock and then a fierce, protective anger. She took a few quick, purposeful steps towards us. Mr. Harrison, noticing her approach, straightened up, a nervous smile replacing his sneer. He clearly recognized her. "Ms. Davis, good morning. I didn't realize you were on this floor so early today," Mr. Harrison stammered, trying to sound important. He was clearly intimidated by her. Sarah Davis was the CEO of Horizon Corp. She had taken over the company just 6 months ago, after the previous CEO retired. She was incredibly young for such a position, only 32 years old, but she was brilliant and highly respected. I knew she was the new CEO, of course. I just never told anyone that Ms. Davis, the incredibly powerful CEO, was my Sarah. My daughter had asked me to keep it a secret for a while, just until she was fully settled in. She didn't want any rumors or special treatment, and I respected her wishes. I just kept cleaning quietly, proudly, knowing that the most powerful person in the building was my own flesh and blood. Sarah ignored Mr. Harrison's greeting. Her eyes were fixed on me, then on the watch in his hand. She saw my tears, my shaking body, my absolute terror. and she saw the cruel triumph on Mr. Harrison's face. "What is going on here, Mr. Harrison?" Sarah's voice was calm, but it had an edge of steel I had never heard before. Mr. Harrison immediately puffed himself up, trying to impress her. "Ms. Davis, good morning. I was just handling a very unfortunate situation. This employee, Elsie, our janitor, has been caught attempting to steal this very expensive watch. I believe it belongs to one of the executives. I was just calling security and the police to report it and terminate her employment immediately." He held up the watch, trying to show off his good work. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She took another step closer, her gaze intense. She looked at the watch, then at me again. Her face softened for a fleeting moment as she saw my plea, then hardened back to a formidable mask. "Is that so, Mr. Harrison?" she asked, her voice low. "And what exactly is your proof that Elsie stole this watch?" "Proof? Ms. Davis, just look at it. It's a luxury watch, Rolex or something similar. This old woman, a janitor, couldn't possibly own something like this. She claims her daughter bought it for her, but that's obviously a ridiculous lie to cover her tracks. I've known for a long time that Elsie is not to be trusted. She's a liability, Ms. Davis, and now, a thief." He spoke with such conviction, so sure of himself. Sarah walked directly up to Mr. Harrison, her eyes never leaving his. She reached out and gently but firmly took the watch from his hand. She looked at it for a moment, running her finger over the inscription on the back. It read, "To my dearest Mom, with all my love S." A silence descended on the hallway, heavy and tense. Mr. Harrison looked confused but still smug. I just stood there, paralyzed by fear and a strange glimmer of hope. Sarah then looked at Mr. Harrison, her eyes cold, devoid of any warmth. Her voice, when she spoke, was barely above a whisper, yet it filled the entire hallway. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice shaking slightly, not with fear but with controlled rage. "You are absolutely correct about one thing." Mr. Harrison beamed, thinking he had won. "See, Ms. Davis, I told you." Sarah cut him off, her gaze unblinking. "You are correct that this watch is indeed a very expensive, luxury timepiece. And you are correct that Elsie, our janitor, could not have afforded it on her salary." My heart sank again. Even Sarah seemed to be against me. But then Sarah turned fully towards me, her eyes softening slightly. She held up the watch, looking directly at my tear-stained face. "What you are not correct about, Mr. Harrison," Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength, "is that this watch is stolen property, or that Elsie is a thief. Because this watch," she paused, her voice ringing with a fierce pride, "was a gift. And I am the one who bought it for her." Mr. Harrison's smug expression instantly vanished. His face went white. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked from me to Sarah, then back again, his mind clearly struggling to put the pieces together. Sarah took another step closer to him, her posture regal, commanding, "Let me make this crystal clear for you, Mr. Harrison. Elsie is not just our janitor. She is not an old woman. She is not a liability. She is the hardest working, most honest, and most loving person I have ever known. And she is also—" Sarah paused for a moment, letting the words hang in the air, letting the shock build. "She is my mother." The words hit Mr. Harrison like a physical blow. His jaw dropped. His eyes darted between me, my tear-streaked face, and Sarah, the powerful CEO. He swayed slightly as if he might faint. The color drained from his face completely. He looked utterly stunned, completely speechless. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable. My heart pounded, but a warmth began to spread through my chest, chasing away the cold fear. My Sarah. My wonderful, brave Sarah. My Sarah. My wonderful, brave Sarah. The silence that followed Sarah's bold declaration was not empty, but thick and heavy, like a dark, velvet curtain falling over the room. It was the kind of silence that pressed in on your eardrums, making the subtle thrum of the building's air conditioning sound like a distant hum, and the beating of my own heart a frantic drum solo against my ribs. The air itself felt colder, sharper, carrying the scent of old paper and the faint, metallic tang of fear. Mr. Harrison stood frozen, his face a ghostly white, his eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on Sarah as if she were a ghost from a forgotten past, risen to haunt his present. He made no sound, no movement, just a slight tremor that ran through his shoulders, barely visible but there. His hands, which had been resting casually on the polished conference table moments before, now hung stiffly at his sides, clenched into tight, bloodless fists. The very atmosphere crackled with unspoken tension, a fragile glass ready to shatter at the slightest breath. Every person in that room seemed to hold their breath, their gazes flicking from Sarah, standing tall and resolute, to the suddenly diminished figure of Mr. Harrison, stripped bare of his false authority. This silence was a testament to Sarah's power, a quiet storm that had just begun to brew. Then, a small, almost imperceptible sound broke the spell. It was the soft intake of breath from Mr. Harrison, a slight gasp that seemed to struggle against the tightness in his throat. His lips parted, then closed, then parted again, as if he were trying to find words that simply wouldn't come. His eyes finally shifted from Sarah to me, and in their depths I saw not just shock but a flicker of something akin to betrayal, as if he believed I had orchestrated this, that I was somehow responsible for his sudden downfall. It was absurd, of course, but fear often twists reason into strange shapes. My own tears had dried on my cheeks, leaving them feeling tight and sticky, but a newfound strength surged through me. Sarah's bravery had given me courage, a quiet fire burning in my belly. Sarah, though, did not waver. She took a slow, deliberate step forward, her expensive high heels making a soft, authoritative click on the polished floor. Each click echoed in the heavy silence, like a hammer striking an anvil, emphasizing her resolve. Her voice, when it came again, was softer than before, but no less firm, infused with a steel that could cut through stone. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her gaze steady, unwavering, "I believe you heard me clearly. I said get out. This is not a suggestion. It is an instruction." The words, though simple, carried the full weight of her CEO title, the power of a company that spanned continents and employed thousands of people. It was a power Mr. Harrison had just learned to his detriment that he had no sway over. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. He tried to speak again, a choked, guttural sound escaping his throat. "Ms. Hayes, I don't understand. There must be some mistake. I have always been a loyal employee. I have served this company for 20 years. My record is impeccable." He clutched at straws, his voice thin and reedy, a stark contrast to his usual booming, self-important tone. His suit, which had seemed so sharp and impressive an hour ago, now looked a size too big, somehow crumpled, as if it had lost its starch along with his confidence. Sarah's expression remained impassive, betraying no emotion. Her eyes, usually warm and sparkling with intelligence, were now like chips of ice, reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights of the conference room without absorbing any warmth. "Mr. Harrison," she replied, her voice maintaining that same quiet, cutting edge. "Loyalty, true loyalty, is not just about time served. It is about respect. It is about integrity. It is about treating every single person who contributes to this company with the dignity they deserve. It is about fostering an environment where everyone feels safe, valued, and heard." She paused, letting her words hang in the air, each one a sharp accusation. "And from what I have just witnessed and what I have been hearing over the past 6 months, you have failed miserably on all counts." My breath hitched. Past 6 months. So Sarah had known. She had been observing. A wave of both relief and a strange, bitter sadness washed over me. Relief that I wasn't alone, that my feelings had been validated. Sadness that I hadn't seen it, that I had allowed myself to be ground down by his behavior for so long, even while my best friend, my rock, had been gathering information. Mr. Harrison's face flushed a mottled red, his initial shock giving way to a desperate anger, a cornered animal lashing out. "What are you talking about, Ms. Hayes? What hearing? This is slander. This is an injustice. I demand to know who has been speaking against me. I demand to face my accusers." His voice rose, betraying the last vestiges of his composure. He pounded his fist weakly on the table. The sound was surprisingly dull, lacking the force he clearly intended. Sarah merely raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a gesture that conveyed more disdain than a shouted insult ever could. "You demand nothing, Mr. Harrison," she stated, her voice now edged with a quiet authority that brooked no argument. "Or no longer in a position to demand anything from this company. As for your accusers, let me assure you, their names are not relevant to you any longer. What is relevant are the facts. Facts that have been meticulously documented, corroborated, and reviewed over the past half-year." She turned her head slightly, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the other executives, who were all watching this unfolding drama with a mixture of horror and grim satisfaction. Not one of them met her eye. They knew, they had seen his behavior, perhaps even suffered under it themselves, but had been too afraid to speak up. This scene, however, was clearly empowering some of them. For 6 months, Sarah continued, her voice gaining a quiet power, I have received an increasing number of complaints, anonymous at first, then some bolder ones, detailing a pattern of behavior from you that is utterly unacceptable in this company. From belittling junior staff in meetings, to taking credit for the work of your subordinates, to creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, to outright aggressive and dismissive conduct towards anyone you perceive as lesser than yourself. Her gaze landed back on Mr. Harrison, piercing through his flimsy bravado. And today, Mr. Harrison, you chose to demonstrate all of these behaviors in one grand, public display. You chose to target a loyal, dedicated employee, someone who has given 15 years of her life to this company, someone who has built entire departments from the ground up, someone whose experience and wisdom are invaluable. She gestured towards me with a subtle flick of her wrist. You chose to humiliate her, to dismiss her ideas, to talk over her, and to outright tell her she was too old to contribute. All of this in front of your peers and in front of me. Each word was a hammer blow, chipping away at Mr. Harrison's rapidly crumbling facade. His face was now a sickly gray, his eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape, for some sign of support, but finding none. The silence returned, this time filled with the buzzing hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant rumble of city traffic outside the soundproof windows, and the rapid, shallow breaths of Mr. Harrison. It was the silence of a man facing his reckoning. Your dismissal is effective immediately, Mr. Harrison, Sarah said, her voice now colder than I had ever heard it, stripped of all warmth. Security will escort you to your office to collect your personal belongings. A severance package will be discussed with your legal representative, though I assure you, it will be significantly less generous than it might have been had you acted with any shred of decency. Your company credit cards are canceled, and your access to company systems has already been revoked. She wasn't just firing him, she was dismantling his entire professional life, piece by piece, right in front of him. Mr. Harrison staggered back a step, bumping into the large, empty chair behind him. He looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut, all his bluster draining out of him. Ms. Hayes, please, I have a family, I have mortgage payments. My wife, my children, he stammered, his voice cracking, reduced to a desperate plea. The man who had been so dismissive of my personal life, so quick to judge my value based on my age, was now using his own family as a shield. The hypocrisy was sickening, yet in that moment, I felt a strange, detached pity for him, fleeting as it was. Sarah's face, however, remained a mask of professional resolve. Those are matters you should have considered before you chose to disrespect your colleagues, Mr. Harrison, she stated, her voice devoid of sympathy. Before you chose to create a hostile work environment, before you chose to act like a tyrant. Consequences, Mr. Harrison, are a fundamental part of life. You created these consequences for yourself. Just then, 2 large, imposing men in dark suits, security personnel, stepped quietly into the conference room. They moved with a practiced, unobtrusive efficiency, positioning themselves on either side of Mr. Harrison, their presence a silent, undeniable reinforcement of Sarah's words. Their faces were impassive, their gaze steady, professional. They didn't speak, but their message was clear. Mr. Harrison looked from Sarah's resolute face to the 2 security guards, then to the closed door and finally back to me. In his eyes, I saw not just defeat, but a flicker of understanding, perhaps even a hint of shame, though it was quickly masked by a resurgence of impotent rage. He opened his mouth as if to protest again, but no sound came out. He seemed to shrink physically before our very eyes. The once imposing figure now looked like a small, pathetic man. Now, Mr. Harrison, Sarah concluded, her voice crisp and final, I believe we are finished here. Mr. Davis and Mr. Jones will assist you. The security guards, without a word, gently but firmly took Mr. Harrison by the elbows, guiding him towards the door. He offered no resistance, his shoulders slumped, his head bowed. As they reached the door, he turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting mine one last time. There was no apology in them, not really, just a raw, bitter resentment. But I also saw something else, something new, fear, real, genuine fear for his future. And as he was led out, the door closing softly behind him, a collective sigh seemed to ripple through the room. The tension, which had been a taut wire, snapped. The air felt lighter, breathable again. The fluorescent light seemed less harsh, the silence less oppressive. It was replaced by a different kind of quiet, one filled with relief and a sense of justice finally served. Sarah turned from the door, her shoulders relaxing slightly, the icy mask on her face softening. She looked at the remaining executives, her gaze lingering on each of them for a moment. "I trust this incident serves as a clear reminder to everyone here," she said, her voice now carrying a different kind of authority, one of expectation and leadership, rather than judgment. "Our company thrives on collaboration, respect, and innovation. Every voice matters. Every idea is valued. We do not tolerate disrespect, intimidation, or any behavior that undermines the dignity of our employees. Period." She paused, allowing her words to sink in, to resonate with each person present. "If anyone here has experienced similar issues or witnesses them in the future, my door is always open. You will be heard. You will be protected. This is not just a policy, it is the core of our company culture." Her eyes met mine again, and this time the ice was gone, replaced by a deep, reassuring warmth, a silent promise of unwavering support. Then she did something unexpected. She walked directly to me, ignoring the stunned executives who were still processing the seismic shift that had just occurred. She reached out, gently taking my hand in hers. Her touch was warm, comforting, grounding. My hand, which had been trembling just moments before, steadied under her touch. "Come on me," she said softly, her voice now back to the familiar, loving tone of my best friend. "Let's get you out of here. I think you've had enough for one day." I could only nod, a lump forming in my throat. My eyes were stinging again, but these were tears of gratitude, of overwhelming relief. I squeezed her hand, unable to speak, afraid that if I tried, I would simply dissolve into a messy puddle of emotions. The shame and fear that had been gnawing at me for so long had suddenly lifted, replaced by a profound sense of validation and care. As we walked out of the conference room, hand in hand, the other executives parted to let us pass, their expressions a mix of awe, discomfort, and perhaps a renewed sense of their own responsibilities. No one dared to speak, to meet our eyes. The power dynamic in that room had been irrevocably altered, reset by Sarah's decisive action. I felt their gazes on my back, but for the first time in a long time, their scrutiny didn't sting. It felt almost empowering. We walked down the long, brightly lit corridor, the sound of our footsteps echoing softly on the polished marble floor. The office hummed with its usual midday activity, but it felt different to me. The air seemed clearer, the buzz of conversations less oppressive. I realized with a jolt that I was no longer walking on eggshells. The weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been unceremoniously and spectacularly lifted from my shoulders. Sarah led me to her private office, a spacious, elegant room with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the bustling city below. It was a place of quiet power, filled with comfortable modern furniture and the faint scent of fresh coffee. She guided me to a plush, cream-colored sofa and gently eased me down. "Sit," she said, her voice gentle. "I'll get you some water or tea, whatever you need." She moved with an efficiency that belied her recent confrontation, already back in her role as protector and nurturer. While she went to her small kitchenette area, I took a moment to truly breathe, to let the reality of what had just happened sink in. It wasn't just that Mr. Harrison was gone. It was the way Sarah had stood up for me, the way she had dismantled his tyranny with such calm, unwavering authority. It was the public validation, the clear message that I mattered, that my contributions mattered, and that my feelings were not insignificant. She returned moments later with a tall glass of ice water, condensation clinging to its sides, and a warm, damp cloth. She handed me the water, then gently took the cloth and began to wipe away the remaining tear streaks from my face. Her touch was infinitely tender, a stark contrast to the harshness of the past hour. There, my dear," she murmured, her voice soft. "It's all over now, you don't have to worry about him ever again." I took a large gulp of the cold water, feeling its coolness soothe my parched throat. "Sarah," I managed, my voice still a little shaky, I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you for everything, for believing me, for doing that." She sat beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders, pulling me into a comforting embrace. Her scent, a subtle blend of expensive perfume and something uniquely Sarah, a scent of strength and warmth, filled my senses. "Me, my dear friend," she said, her voice muffled slightly against my hair. "There's nothing to thank me for. You are one of the most brilliant, most dedicated people I know. You built so much of this company with your own hands, with your own mind. To see someone like him, a pompous, insecure bully, try to diminish you, it was intolerable. Absolutely intolerable." She pulled back slightly, looking into my eyes, her own filled with a fierce protectiveness. I should have acted sooner, I suppose, but I needed to gather enough evidence to build a watertight case. I couldn't risk a wrongful dismissal suit or an appeal, and I needed to see it for myself to fully understand the extent of his behavior. The anonymous complaints were growing, but seeing him treat you like that in a public meeting sealed his fate. It proved everything. "So you knew," I whispered, the realization solidifying. "You knew what he was doing." "I had strong suspicions, yes," she admitted, her gaze unwavering. "His management style had been flagged in performance reviews for a while, but it was always couched in terms of aggressive ambition or demanding leadership. But the anonymous HR reports, the subtle shifts in team morale, the way some of his direct reports seemed to walk on eggshells, it all started adding up. When you started coming home tired, distant, not your usual vibrant self, I put two and two together. I just needed him to show his true colors without a shadow of a doubt in a way that couldn't be denied." She paused, a shadow crossing her face. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, me, to be the instrument of his downfall in such a painful way. But know this, your strength, your resilience, even in the face of his utter disrespect, was what allowed us to finally get rid of him. You exposed him." Her words were a balm to my raw nerves. I hadn't felt strong. I had felt weak, old, useless, but Sarah saw something different. She always had. She saw the best in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. "What will happen now?" I asked, my voice gaining a little more steadiness. "With the department and with me," Sarah smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners. "The department will be fine. We'll be doing a thorough review of leadership there. For now, I'm appointing Maria Rodriguez as interim head. She's sharp, fair, and has been silently doing much of the heavy lifting that Harrison took credit for. As for you, my dear," she paused, her smile widening, "you are going on an immediate, fully paid sabbatical for 3 months, no questions asked. Go anywhere you want, rest, rejuvenate, rediscover your passion. The company will cover all expenses, flights, accommodation, whatever you desire. Consider it compensation for the distress you've endured and a thank you for your incredible contributions over the years. When you return, we'll talk about a new, exciting role that fully leverages your wisdom and experience, far away from any department that Harrison ever tainted." My jaw dropped. A sabbatical, fully paid, for 3 months. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. I had been preparing myself for an apology, maybe a transfer, but never this. It was a lifeline, a fresh start, a gift of time and healing that I desperately needed but hadn't dared to dream of. "Sarah," I choked out, tears welling up again, but this time they were purely joyful. You don't have to," she shook her head, her grip firm on my shoulder. "I absolutely do, me. You've given your life to this company. You deserve to be treated like the queen you are. Think of it as a corporate spa treatment, a well-deserved break to mend your spirit. And when you come back, we'll show everyone just how much invaluable wisdom old me has to offer." She winked, a mischievous glint in her eyes, making a subtle jab at Mr. Harrison's cruel words. The thought of escaping the city, of having 3 months free from stress, from the oppressive atmosphere of the office, from the subtle daily slights that had become my normal, was intoxicating. I could almost feel the warm sun on my skin, hear the gentle lapping of waves, or smell the fresh pine of a forest. It felt like a heavy shroud was being lifted, revealing a world of possibilities I had forgotten existed. "Where would you even go?" Sarah asked, seeing the dawning wonder in my eyes. "Paris, Bali, a quiet cabin in the mountains." I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing it. My mind, usually so cluttered with work deadlines and anxieties, was suddenly clear, open to new visions. A quiet cabin in the mountains, perhaps. Somewhere with fresh air, the scent of pine and damp earth, the sound of a rushing stream. A place where I could hike, read, paint, and simply be. It sounded perfect. "A cabin," I finally said, opening my eyes, a genuine smile spreading across my face for the first time in what felt like forever. "A quiet cabin surrounded by nature, away from everything. Sarah beamed, her beautiful face radiating relief and happiness. Perfect. I'll have my assistant start looking into arrangements immediately. Just tell her where you'd like to go, roughly, and she'll handle all the details. No stress for you, just focus on resting. We spent the next hour in her office, simply talking. We talked about silly things, about old memories, about the future. It felt like old times, before the weight of corporate life, before the pressures and the people like Mr. Harrison had tried to dim my light. It was a reaffirmation of our friendship, a reminder that some bonds are forged so strong that they can withstand any storm. She offered to drive me home, insisted, in fact. No work today, me, she said firmly. You're done. Go home, put your feet up, and start dreaming about those mountains. As we walked out of the executive suite, the office seemed to buzz with a new energy. There was a lightness, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that I hadn't noticed before. Colleagues who had previously avoided my gaze now offered tentative smiles, some even a nod of acknowledgement. It wasn't just me who had been liberated. The entire company had witnessed a cleansing, a declaration that decency and respect were paramount. The ride home with Sarah was filled with comfortable silence, punctuated by her gentle reassurances. She dropped me off at my small, cozy house, a place that now felt like a true sanctuary, not just a place to escape to from work, but a place to heal. As I stepped out of her luxurious car, the cool evening air wrapped around me, a comforting embrace. The scent of blooming jasmine from my neighbor's garden filled the air, a sweet counterpoint to the day's bitter start. I watched Sarah's car disappear down the street, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. I walked up my small garden path, past the rose bushes I tended with such care, their petals unfurling in soft shades of pink and crimson. The familiar scent of roses, so comforting and familiar, brought a small, true smile to my lips. My key turned easily in the lock, and I stepped inside, into the quiet calm of my home. The silence here was different from the office's earlier, stifling silence. This was a gentle, welcoming silence, filled with the warmth of my own memories, the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hall, and the soft hum of the refrigerator. It was a silence that invited peace. I kicked off my shoes by the door, feeling the plush rug beneath my tired feet. I walked through the living room, running my hand along the smooth, cool wood of my antique bookshelf, filled with books I loved and had read many times. The light filtering through the lace curtains cast soft, dappled patterns on the worn carpet, creating a sense of calm and tranquility. I moved into the kitchen, the heart of my home, where the scent of lingering spices from last night's dinner still subtly perfumed the air. I poured myself another glass of water, this one from my own tap, and savored its simple, refreshing taste. As I sat down at my kitchen table, looking out at the small, overgrown garden through the window, the enormity of what had happened truly began to sink in. Mr. Harrison was gone. His oppressive presence, the subtle digs, the condescending remarks, the blatant dismissals of my contributions, all of it was gone. It was as if a dark cloud that had been hanging over my life for the past year had suddenly been blown away, leaving clear, bright skies in its wake. I realized I hadn't just been a victim, I had been a survivor. And now, I was being given a chance to thrive again, to reclaim parts of myself that I had unknowingly allowed to wither under the constant barrage of negativity. Sarah's faith in me, her unwavering belief in my worth, had been the catalyst. She had not only rescued me but had also reminded me of my own intrinsic value. The next few days were a blur of activity, but a pleasant, freeing kind of activity. Sarah's assistant, a wonderfully efficient young woman named Chloe, called me first thing the next morning. Her voice was bright and cheerful, completely unlike the hushed, nervous tones I usually encountered at the office. "Good morning, Ms. Montgomery," Chloe chirped. "Ms. Hayes asked me to get in touch about your sabbatical. We're so excited for you. Have you thought about where you'd like to go?" "We have some absolutely stunning cabin options in the Pacific Northwest, nestled in the redwood forests, or perhaps something lakeside in the Adirondacks. We also have a lovely retreat in the Swiss Alps if you prefer cooler climes, or even a charming cottage in the Cotswolds if you fancy the English countryside." She spoke quickly, her enthusiasm infectious. I smiled, feeling a genuine lightness in my chest. "Good morning, Chloe. Thank you. A cabin in the mountains sounds absolutely perfect. Perhaps somewhere with hiking trails, fresh air, and a sense of quiet solitude. The Pacific Northwest sounds wonderful. Chloe immediately sprang into action. Excellent choice. I'll compile a few options for you by this afternoon. They'll include full itineraries, photos, and all the details regarding amenities. Don't worry about a thing: flights, car rental, grocery delivery services, even a local guide for hiking if you'd like one, will all be arranged. Just let me know your preferences. The level of meticulous care and attention to detail was overwhelming, in the best possible way. It wasn't just a sabbatical. It was a bespoke healing journey, tailored to my every need. I felt truly valued, truly cared for, in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Over the next 2 days, Chloe sent me beautiful brochures and virtual tour of several breathtaking cabins. I finally settled on a stunning log cabin nestled deep within a national forest in Washington state. It was remote, surrounded by ancient, towering trees, with a crystal-clear river flowing just beyond its porch. The photos showed deer grazing peacefully in the clearing, and the promise of crisp, clean air filled me with a profound sense of anticipation. The cabin itself was cozy yet luxurious, with a stone fireplace, a fully equipped kitchen, and a vast library of books. It was everything I had dreamed of and more. As the day of my departure approached, I found myself bustling with a renewed energy. I packed clothes suitable for hiking and relaxation, bought new sketchbooks and art supplies, and even started a new novel to take with me. My home, usually a place of quiet routine, now hummed with the joyful energy of impending adventure. On the morning of my flight, Sarah herself came to pick me up. She insisted. "Wouldn't miss seeing you off for the world, me," she said, her eyes sparkling. She helped me with my luggage, her strong hands easily lifting my suitcase into the trunk of her car. The drive to the airport was filled with laughter and nostalgic stories. We reminisced about our early days at the company, the challenges we'd faced, the triumphs we'd celebrated. It felt like a lifetime ago, a different world, yet the core of our friendship remained solid and unwavering. At the airport, Sarah walked me right to the security checkpoint. She pulled me into a tight hug, her embrace warm and comforting. "Promise me you'll truly disconnect me," she whispered, her voice earnest. "No checking work emails, no worrying about anything, just rest, enjoy, and come back refreshed and ready to conquer the world in whatever new way you choose." I hugged her back just as tightly, feeling a fresh wave of emotion. "I promise, Sarah, thank you for everything." As I walked through the security line, then to my gate, I felt a sense of lightness, a spring in my step that hadn't been there in ages. The bustling airport, usually a source of stress, now felt like a gateway to freedom. I found my window seat on the plane, looking out as the plane taxied down the runway. The city, my home for so many years, began to shrink below me, eventually disappearing into a patchwork of fields and clouds. The journey itself was surprisingly peaceful. I spent my time reading, sketching, and simply gazing out the window at the endless expanse of sky and land. The anticipation of the quiet solitude, the fresh air, and the towering trees grew with every passing mile. Finally, after a long but comfortable flight, I landed in a smaller regional airport. A pre-arranged car was waiting for me, its driver holding a polite sign with my name. The driver was a kind, quiet man named David, who immediately struck me as someone deeply connected to the natural world around him. He drove me through winding country roads, the landscape slowly transforming from scattered farms to dense, ancient forest. The air grew crisper, cooler, and carried the unmistakable scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy of trees, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow on the road. As we drove deeper, the silence of the forest began to envelop us. It was a rich, living silence, filled with the rustling of leaves, the distant call of unseen birds, and the gentle whisper of the wind through the tall pines. This was the silence I craved, the kind that soothes the soul and clears the mind. David, sensing my desire for quiet, did not speak much, only pointing out a few landmarks or a particularly stunning vista. After about 2 hours of driving, we finally turned onto a narrow, unpaved track. The car bumped gently over roots and stones, and then, nestled in a clearing bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun, I saw it. My cabin. It was more beautiful than the pictures had conveyed. Built from dark, seasoned logs, with a wide, inviting porch and a stone chimney, It looked perfectly at home amidst the towering evergreens. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, clean and invigorating. A crystal-clear river, exactly as promised, sparkling and gurgling just beyond the cabin, its gentle rush providing a constant, soothing soundtrack. David helped me unload my luggage, carrying my suitcases with ease. He showed me around the cabin, pointing out how to light the fireplace, where the extra blankets were, and how to operate the well-stocked kitchen. He even brought in a basket overflowing with fresh local produce, artisanal bread, and a selection of local cheeses, a thoughtful touch arranged by Chloe. "There's a small general store about 15 minutes' drive down the road," David explained, his voice soft and low, perfectly matched to the tranquility of the setting. "And a lovely little diner if you don't feel like cooking, but otherwise you're quite secluded here. My number is on the fridge, don't hesitate to call if you need anything at all. I live just 20 minutes away." I thanked him profusely, my heart swelling with gratitude. He gave me a small, reassuring smile, and then, with a final wave, he was gone, his car's engine fading into the forest's embrace. I stood on the porch for a long time, just taking it all in. The vastness of the forest, the clarity of the air, the soothing sound of the river. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange, pink, and deep purple, casting long, dramatic shadows through the trees. It was utterly breathtaking. The silence was profound, not empty, but full of life, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl. It was a silence that spoke of ancient wisdom and untamed beauty, a welcome balm to my soul. I walked inside, exploring every corner of the cabin. The living room was dominated by the large stone fireplace, a cozy haven against the evening chill. The bookshelves were indeed filled with fascinating titles, from classic literature to natural history guides. The kitchen was a chef's dream, with modern appliances and gleaming countertops. Upstairs, the bedroom was a sanctuary, with a large, comfortable bed covered in a thick, fluffy duvet and a window that looked out onto the river. I unpacked slowly, carefully placing my clothes in the wooden dresser, arranging my art supplies on a small desk by the window. Each action was deliberate, mindful. There was no rush, no pressing deadline, no demanding boss. Only the quiet rhythm of my own breath and the gentle sounds of the forest outside. That first evening, I built a roaring fire in the stone fireplace. The crackling of the burning logs filled the room with warmth and light, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I made a simple dinner of fresh bread and cheese, savoring every bite. Then I curled up on the plush sofa with a book, the warmth of the fire on my face, the scent of wood smoke in the air. For the first time in what felt like a very, very long time, I felt truly, completely at peace. The stress and anxiety that had plagued me for months seemed to melt away, replaced by a deep, quiet contentment. Mr. Harrison, his harsh words, his dismissive glare, all of it felt like a distant, unpleasant dream. The next morning, I woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains and the gentle sound of the river. I felt rested, truly rested, for the first time in ages. I made a cup of strong coffee, its rich aroma filling the kitchen, and stepped out onto the porch. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the fresh scent of pine and dew. A thin mist hung over the river, slowly dissipating as the sun rose higher. I spent the next few weeks immersing myself in the rhythms of nature. I hiked every day, exploring the winding trails that crisscrossed the forest. The towering trees, some hundreds of years old, seemed to whisper ancient secrets as I passed beneath them. I learned to identify different bird calls, watched deer graze peacefully in sunlit clearings, and discovered hidden waterfalls tumbling over moss-covered rocks. Each step felt like a release, a shedding of the city's confines. My legs grew stronger, my lungs expanded with the clean air, and my mind cleared. I spent hours sketching the intricate patterns of leaves, the rough texture of tree bark, the delicate beauty of wildflowers. I read books, sometimes for an entire afternoon, lost in stories that transported me to different worlds. I cooked nourishing meals, experimenting with new recipes, delighting in the simple pleasure of fresh ingredients. I practiced yoga on the porch, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin and the gentle breeze caress my face as I stretched and breathed. Slowly, gradually, the emotional bruises began to heal. The sharp sting of Mr. Harrison's words faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. I started to remember who I was, beyond my job title, beyond the office politics, beyond the expectations of others. I remembered my passion for art, my love for nature, my joy in simple pleasures. One afternoon, about 3 weeks into my sabbatical, I was sitting by the river, sketching a particularly beautiful cluster of wildflowers. The sun was warm on my back, the sound of the water a constant lullaby. I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for Sarah, for her fierce loyalty and unwavering support. Gratitude for this incredible gift of time and space. Gratitude for the resilience of my own spirit. I realized that Mr. Harrison, in his cruel attempt to diminish me, had inadvertently set me free. He had pushed me to a breaking point, yes, but that breaking point had led to a powerful intervention, a turning point orchestrated by my dearest friend. His disrespect, though deeply hurtful at the time, had ultimately served a purpose, exposing not just his own flaws, but also the strength of my friendships and my own inner fortitude. It had been a painful journey, but one that had led me to this serene, beautiful place and back to myself. I closed my sketchbook, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. When I returned to the company, it wouldn't be as the quiet, slightly fearful me who had endured Mr. Harrison's bullying. It would be as the me who had found her voice, who knew her worth, and who was ready to contribute with renewed passion and wisdom. I was not old and useless. I was experienced, resilient, and reborn. The remaining weeks of my sabbatical flew by in a blur of peaceful days and starlit nights. I felt like a different person, lighter, stronger, more vibrant. My skin had a healthy glow, my eyes sparkled with a renewed zest for life. I had hiked countless miles, painted dozens of landscapes, read dozens of books, and spent hours in quiet contemplation. The fresh mountain air had cleansed my lungs, the quiet solitude had healed my soul, and the beauty of nature had reignited my spirit. As the 3 months drew to a close, a sense of gentle anticipation began to replace the initial feeling of pure escape. I wasn't dreading returning to the city or to work. Instead, I felt ready to face whatever came next, with a newfound clarity and strength. I knew the world wasn't perfect, and that challenges would still arise, but I also knew I had a powerful support system and a renewed sense of self-worth. On my last evening in the cabin, I sat by the fireplace, watching the flames dance and crackle. The scent of pine and wood smoke filled the air, a familiar and comforting aroma. I thought about the journey I had undertaken, not just the physical journey to this beautiful place, but the emotional journey within myself. I had faced disrespect, humiliation, and self-doubt, but through it all, I had emerged stronger, more centered, and more appreciative of the true treasures in my life: friendship, resilience, and the quiet power of my own spirit. The memory of Mr. Harrison still lingered, a faint echo, but it no longer held power over me. It was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness I had overcome, rather than a shadow that still plagued me. My spirit felt cleansed, as if the mountain air had scrubbed away every last bit of negativity. I knew that Maria Rodriguez, the new interim head of the department, would have had her own battles to fight in the wake of Mr. Harrison's departure. Sarah had mentioned her in passing, a woman of quiet strength who had endured much of Harrison's aggressive ambition from a lower vantage point. I made a mental note to connect with Maria as soon as I returned, to offer my support and insights. The ripple effect of Mr. Harrison's behavior would take time to truly dissipate, but Sarah's decisive action had set the tone for a new era of respect and collaboration within the company. There was work to be done, not just on projects, but on rebuilding trust and fostering a healthier environment. And I, Montgomery, was ready to be a part of that positive change. My wisdom, my experience, my old self, as Harrison had scornfully described, now felt like a wellspring of valuable resources, ready to be tapped for the greater good. My spirit of generosity, dulled by his constant criticism, was rekindled. This sabbatical had been more than a break. It had been a profound transformation. I had rediscovered my artistic side, filling my sketchbooks with vivid landscapes and intricate studies of nature. I had devoured books on philosophy and history, expanding my mind beyond the confines of corporate reports. I had hiked challenging trails, pushing my physical limits and feeling the strength return to my body. I had learned to listen to the whisper of the wind, the rush of the river, and most importantly, the quiet voice within myself. That voice told me I was capable, valuable, and worthy of respect. It was a valuable lesson, one that Aunt Me wanted to share with all of you tonight. No matter how dark the clouds may seem, no matter how much someone tries to dim your light, there is always hope. There is always the potential for a new dawn, for a fresh start. And often, it is in the face of our greatest challenges that we discover our greatest strengths. So, hold on to your worth, cherish your true friends, and never let anyone make you feel small. Thank you for listening to my story tonight. If you enjoyed this tale of resilience and friendship, please give it a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Nunny Stories for more heartwarming tales.